Hey, this is Katie Frenzy with tips to help you sell more. Now this week we're talking about cutting through the red tape that might get in your way when you're starting an online store. So some of these things are essential, others maybe not quite as important, but things you're going to want to watch out for. So number one, taxes. Different everywhere, every place, you charge different amounts. If you're selling a particular product in a particular location, you might have to charge extra tax on that particular product. So the big key takeaway, make sure you actually talk to a tax professional, whether that's a state comptroller, at least when you're getting started so you understand the expectations. The big takeaway too is to make sure you file for a tax ID if you do decide to charge tax, so you can file accordingly. So might feel like the weight of the world on your shoulders. It's not super complicated, but not necessarily the best and most fun part of getting an online store started. But out of the way now, we're going to move on to payment gateways, way more exciting. This is not necessarily super high priority, but want you to be aware that when you are vetting out payment gateways, you do check and see if they have any restrictions around your particular product. There are some payment gateways that do have restrictions. So on top of asking questions on if they actually have transaction fees, setup fees, things of that nature, make sure to ask if they have any restrictions around what you want to sell. Next, copyrights, trademarks, and patents. This isn't necessarily something you have to go and do. It depends on your product, especially if you're making something brand new or have a new take on a particular product. Check and see if it's done before. Check and see if someone has filed before. If not, stake your claim. You might want to do that a little bit early. Next, shipping. So this is something you can very easily find all over the internet if you want to use UPS, FedEx, whatever major provider. They display their shipping restrictions really clearly. Just look them up, see which one you want to use. So if you're selling something that's a little kooky, like maybe animals or some sort of chemical, typically there's going to be some sort of restriction around that. Then, inventory. Depending on where you want to do business, whether you're actually storing things someplace or doing business out of a particular location, maybe even your home, check and see if there are any like zoning laws or if you need a permit to be able to do business. Sometimes that does come into play, so definitely do some research there. Next, age restrictions. So on top of COPPA, which means if you are selling to someone 13 years or younger on the internet, you're not allowed to actually collect any personal information from them. So something you definitely want to be aware of. But age restrictions, as far as if you're selling a product that has an age restriction, you might want to think about having some sort of entry verification or age verification on your website. Haven't been able at this time to find any definites as far as locations around the world that have to have this based on a particular product. But definitely do your research based on where you're located to make sure if you're selling alcohol, tobacco, or anything that does have that age restriction, explosives, whatever, that you actually have some sort of age verification on your website. Let's see, business and product insurance, definitely something important. Not necessarily a must-have, but in particular, maybe look into product liability insurance if you're just getting started. But lots of different things that you can look into. Check out LegalZoom, it's just a really good jumping off point. They do a lot of different things as far as insurance and things of that nature. Licenses and permits. As far as a business license, permit to sell, you might have restrictions around your particular product or service. So definitely check in and see if you need to have any permits to be able to actually sell your product, especially if it's ammunition or something of that nature. There's other ones that you might want to do some research too. Just make sure you've got all your ducks in order. Now, as far as PCI compliance, this is making sure that anything that your actual shopper or customer is submitting on your website, any personal information is protected. Typically, your e-commerce platform is going to take care of that for you, but just be aware, make sure you're doing your research and that the e-commerce platform will take care of it, or that you're going to take care of it yourself when you go to start your business online. And then last but not least, there are some kooky things out there. So this is really all just about doing your research and legwork, making sure you've got a good foundation. But iTunes in particular just rings a bell with me. I think it's funny. They actually have like a little clause, terms of service type thing that you can't use iTunes for weapons of mass destruction. So you got to be very cognizant of these things. So thank you so much. Tune in next week for more tips to help you sell more. So hopefully you enjoyed. I'm Katie Frenzy, and thanks for tuning in.